this is covering the basics, so it should give you, everybody I hope will leave with some good ideas, and you know how these things are. If you have a couple of things that you probably know a lot already, and if you have a couple of tips and tricks that you didn't know before that help you, it can make a big difference sometimes. And you know, in the real world, most of us don't go home and cook every night. We want to have fun with our time, with our free time. So we'll show what we do in our family is we usually cook on Sunday evenings and make a big soup. And a lot of my patients and clients do the same thing. They make a big pot of soup at least once a week, and then what we do is we take that hot pot of soup and let it cool, and then because it's kind of warm and hard to work with hot soup, I'll put the whole big hot pot in the refrigerator. Sometimes in the refrigerator we keep in our garage. And the next day when it's cooled down, then I'll take a ladle and put it into like 10 different containers or 15 different containers and put it in the refrigerator, and, you know, so I can just grab one on my way to work or something in the morning all week long. So we'll pretty much try to always have a soup or a stew pre-made. So there's always something, and there's always beans mixed in and greens mixed in and some kind of juices like carrot juice or tomato juice or celery juice or something. And there's obviously lots of mushrooms in there. So always some food pre-made, ready to go in our refrigerators. So it's never a question of not having something to eat and maybe making a bad decision or thinking that what am I going to eat? Because if you don't have time to eat, just grab something that's in the refrigerator, stuffed away in the back in one of those containers, right? And then I'll usually make a salad dressing at least twice a week. For example, I'll make one salad dressing on Sunday, the same day I'll make that soup, or the other one on Wednesday nights. So then the same salad dressing made on Sunday, I'll use that salad dressing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and the next salad dressing I'll change then and make a different salad dressing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I keep it relatively simple. Like on once a week I'll probably make that salad dressing where I'll peel a few oranges, you know, dump it in the Vitamix with some cashews, some sesame seeds, some blood orange vinegar, and a squeeze of lemon. That's one of my favorite dressings, the orange cashew dressing. And then so I'll probably make that every single week for those 3 days, and then every week I'll change and make my second dressing something different. So I'll always have the orange dressing, but then half the week I'll try a few different dressings: pistachio mustard, a Caesar, you know, a balsamic raisin, whatever I'm making, a tomato sauce-based dressing. And so clearly the most important thing you could learn here, we're saying cooking for health, salads, soups and stews, smoothies, menu planning, restaurant eating. It's not a lot to learn because the most important thing here is clearly salad dressings, right? Because this is obviously a salad-based program. We want people to eat a big salad at least once a day. We want raw vegetables to be the cornerstone of your meal. And I tell everybody to put a big sign in the refrigerator that says the salad is the main dish. So if your salad is the main dish, and many times for lunch, I'm either going to have a salad and a soup, or a salad or a soup, or soup dumped on top of my salad as a dressing. You know, so sometimes I'll actually take lettuce or cabbage or kale or collards and shred it very thin, you know, very fine shredded, and put it in a bowl. And then actually heat up some soup, some soup I like or some soup I've made over the week, heat it up and dump the hot soup out of the microwave. It's no longer being heated up now, and dump it on the shredded vegetables. Mix it so that it kind of like softens or semi-cooks the vegetables somewhat, but they're not really heated. They're just heated by the hot soup. And that's my dressing for the soup. I'll eat that with a piece of fruit, and that's my lunch. Right? Because, you know, life is, we have to enjoy our life, and we want to be able to sometimes go home at night and, you know, go exercise, go have fun with friends, go do places, and, you know, we don't want to have to be cooking in the kitchen all the time. So let's go through some of this now. So the underlying philosophy here is that you don't want to overeat even on the right food. Just because your diet is healthy doesn't mean you're living in a healthful manner. A lot of people just keep eating all day long and snacking all night long, even if it's unhealthy food. And sure, you can overeat. You can overeat on almost any food, right? And we don't want to have any deficiencies, so we want to have high nutrient foods, no excess calories, no deficiencies, and limit unhealthy foods. That's basically pretty simple, right? And who could disagree with that? Eat high nutrient foods, don't overeat, don't be deficient in anything, and don't eat a lot of things that are unhealthy. Kind of straightforward, right? And these goals, they're just goals. They're not, because people sometimes need some guidance of how much to eat because they're so confused by conventional standards. And I don't have to hold to, some people say, I can't eat 2 pounds of vegetables, I'm in pain, I can't fit it all in, so don't eat that much. And other people will say, well, that's almost nothing. My 5-year-old daughter eats a pound of cooked vegetables, but as a snack before lunch. So they say, well, okay, then eat 2 pounds. So clearly, it's not rigid here, whatever your needs are. But in any case, when I'm thinking about it, a pound of raw vegetables is meant to include things like tomatoes and carrots and snow pea pods and shredded cabbage and lettuces. And I could eat a pound. I could some days eat a half a pound to a pound-sized tomato. The tomato alone could be a pound. It's not that big. It's mostly water. So we're not saying to eat a pound of lettuce, but the amount of lettuce you eat or shredded vegetables could be 4 ounces, 6 ounces, 7 ounces. It could be half a pound or could be a quarter of a pound. Cooked vegetables, a 10-ounce box of frozen broccoli is a little small box of frozen broccoli. Isn't much broccoli as 10 ounces. I don't see a pound as that big of an amount, And of course, this is split between 2 or 3 meals. And a pound of fresh fruit, most of us are eating 2 or 3 pieces of fruit for breakfast and maybe 1 piece of fruit with each meal, or sometimes 2 pieces of fruit with each meal. So that only adds up to about 1,000 calories. We talked about advanced glycation end products, mostly formed when starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures. So that, meaning especially when the food starts to brown. So when you're baking your potatoes in the oven or baking your squash in the oven, right? You want to bake it at a lower temperature. Steaming is the preferred way to cook, or cooking in a pressure cooker, or making things in soups, because the water content prevents burning or browning. So even when you're talking about vegetables, you can have barbecued and roasted vegetables occasionally, but when you do so, try not to make it so they're blackened or darkened. A little bit once in a while isn't so bad, but some people eating blackened and darkened and burnt food all the time. If you're eating white potatoes, obviously, don't bake them so they get browned and darkened, and eat only the white parts. And of course, AGEs are clearly more likely to form when we're dry cooking foods, baking in the oven, making the crust of breads like the pretzels, chips, things that are hardened with dry cooking form the most acrylamides, like in corn flakes and pretzels. Things like that have the most acrylamides. You can make delicious tasting chips and crunchy food just by putting vegetables in a dehydrator, like making kale chips or carrot chips just by dehydrating them without cooking them, and that gives you that same feeling of crunchiness without having to really overcook something. So we're going to go through now the salad dressings, soups and stews, smoothies and sorbets, the basic S's of nutritarian cooking. When you make your salads, try to use some arugula, watercress, different types of greens. I love mâche, and they had it here last night, I think. It's a really small leaf lettuce. It tastes really good. And shred tomatoes. And what I like to do is cutting the lettuce. I also like to shred it in small pieces. Cut it very finely, because if you leave the leaves big, you can't fit much on your plate or in your bowl. You could you could fit nicer into a salad bowl if you shred it up small. Then and it mixes better. What we'll do at home also is I'll take a big salad bowl, like one of those big plastic bowls with a sealed lid, and I'll shred the lettuce, cut up the tomatoes, cut up the cucumbers, shred onions very fine, mix it, maybe some frozen peas, maybe some beans, make my dressings, dump it in there, put the cover on, and then I'll shake it, turn it upside down and shake it, and then, so it's a good way to mix the salad. So what we do generally to start with the salad is I'll take the lettuce, cut the bottom off of the head of romaine, let's say. So this is already cut. So cutting the bottom off a head of romaine, wash the outer leaves carefully in water, put it in as you're washing your lettuce or any of your kale or vegetables, putting it in a colander, right? And then I usually take bath towels. It's faster than those salad spinners to dry them, because you can't fit much lettuce in a salad spinner, and it takes too long to keep putting it in, taking it out, spinning it, turning it in, taking it out, spinning it. So I find it, and if you're making a small amount of lettuce, they're convenient. but I found it easier because I'm usually cooking for a large amount of people. In my house, we have 5 people that might be eating, or 6 people might be eating a salad. But even still, even if I only had 2 or 3 people eating it, I don't want to keep making it every night. I want to prepare a lot of lettuce at one time. So I use bath towels. So I'll take the bath towel and lay it out on the kitchen table. I'll wash the lettuce. I put another towel on top. Often I don't put another towel on top. I just roll out the vegetables on half the towel, and then I'll take the other half, roll it on top, and now I have the towel that has the lettuce in between the 2 layers, and I'll put another layer on the top on half. It's a big towel. So I'll put another layer of vegetables and fold it in half again. And then I'll put a little slight layer and fold it in half again. So now it's almost rolled up, and now I can either press it down with my hands or sit on it. With assuming that you haven't eaten beans the day before. Or at least you're used to eating beans. So it's a real convenient way to dry your lettuce. A lot of times you can it also keeps the lettuce fresh because the towel becomes slightly damp. So you roll your lettuce in your towel. You could roll the lettuce in the towel, and you could just fold it in half and put the whole towel with the lettuce rolled and dried right into the refrigerator that way. Or you could then you can unravel the towel and pack the lettuce into plastic bags and put it in your refrigerator in full size, those big quart bags tightly, so you have the lettuce already done for a whole meal, already measured out. And you have like 5 of those bags made up for the next 4 days or so, right? And then if you're putting the towel, obviously, in the refrigerator, it keeps a little bit fresher, longer than putting it in the bags, because when the lettuce is pushed against each other, there's more chance of developing moisture. But if you can use it within 3 days, it's fine in the bags. If you're using it 4 or 5 days, it's actually probably better to leave it rolled in the towel if you're going to want to have it at a later point, okay? So just a quick way to dry your lettuce. And then we go on to shredding the lettuce and making it a salad. We want to throw a quick dressing together. It doesn't take too long. The quick, fast dressing way to do it is just to take like a low-sodium tomato sauce, right? Or a lot of times what we do in our house is we prepare a homemade tomato sauce in advance. Like we put some cooked tomatoes on the stove with onions and garlic and mushrooms and and spices and nutritional yeast and tomato and some of our tomato zest or some and we actually have the tomato sauce prepared in advance in the refrigerator in a little bowl that I can scoop some tomato sauce to put on top of vegetables, or I could use it to make a salad dressing. I could take the tomato sauce, put it in the blender. If I'm in a rush, I don't need to put it in the blender. I could just put it in a dish and mash a little almond butter in with a fork, and pour a little fig vinegar or balsamic vinegar in with it, and mix it with a fork and put it on my salad as a quick dressing. That could be a very fast dressing. But a lot of times I'll just throw the whole nuts and seeds in the dressing. And then this says, the cool dressings we're going to talk about using vinegars, frozen foods, spices. We're going to come up with the next slide and give you a lot of dressing options. And then the creative toppings, sometimes what I like to do on a salad is put some sliced kiwis, sliced strawberries, sliced plantain, using ripe plantains, because plantains are a banana that holds together with more, it has more meatiness to it, so it doesn't like fall apart and get the banana smush all over the lettuce. It still holds it so it's in various chunks mixed in with the salad. And sometimes we'll mix like maybe plantains and bananas or shredded apples or mix or kiwis, make some fruit in the salad as well, mixed with the lettuce. Adds a nice light flavor. When we're using the darker, garlicky, tomato-based dressings, then we're using usually a darker vinegar, like a balsamic vinegar or a fig vinegar, and we're using the fruity, orangey, kiwi, pineapple flavors. We're going to use a lighter colored vinegar, like an orange vinegar, blood orange vinegar, a lemon vinegar, so a wine vinegar, an apple vinegar, something like that, right? Pear vinegar. So we're going to change use a darker vinegar when using tomatoes, even like the balsamic. We have a pomegranate balsamic, which is good too. And of course, try to match the vinegar to the fruits using. If we're using a blueberry dressing, we use blueberry vinegar. And then I love sun-dried tomatoes, so I purchase those organically grown, no salt, no oil. They're just very dry, hard as a rock, sun-dried tomatoes. I snip the bag, the plastic bag they come in, snip the top, open the bag. I add a little water in the bag, seal the top of the bag again, and put it in my refrigerator. So then I shake it up a little bit, turn it over a little bit, so now the sun-dried tomatoes soak up some of that water. So when I use them for my salad, I take the moistened, now sun-dried soft tomatoes, which have a nice flavor, and I can either drop them in the Vitamix to make as an ingredient for my salad dressing to give the more sun-dried tomato flavor, or I can cut them with a scissor, with a kitchen scissor, and put them in little chunks as a garnish on top of my broccoli dish or my okra dish or right on top of my salad. A lot of times I'll just use soaked sun-dried tomatoes as my only dressing. I love sun-dried tomatoes. Just to have rolled lettuce with sun-dried tomatoes with nothing else on it is fine. Throw a little roasted garlic in there and you got a fantastic meal. I'll take that whole clove of garlic where the roots stick out, and I'll take a sharp knife and slice off the roots of the whole clove, leaving all the paper on the garlic. And then throw that in the oven, roasting it as it is with the paper on it, with the roots cut off, just for 15 minutes. And then I can take that whole garlic clove I just roasted and squeeze the whole thing now, because it turns soft, and squeeze out all the soft garlic and use it as a paste now, my peanut butter like garlic paste, and throw that right onto my dressings with my sun-dried tomatoes, or paste it, right into mix it as an ingredient into my salad dressings, which you can get a lot of garlic out of it really fast. Okay, so we're moving on to the next slide. We talked about fresh fruit, sun-dried tomatoes, roasted garlic, toasted sesame seeds. We mentioned that earlier, that a lot of times when I'll make a dressing to bring out the flavor of the seeds, I'll use the majority of the seeds raw to maximize their nutrition, but some of the seeds I'll toast to maximize their flavor. And I'll mix both the raw seeds with the toasted seeds to make the salad dressing, leaving over some toasted seeds behind to sprinkle on top as a garnish. For example, I'll make an orange cashew dressing, which has in this ingredient cashew nuts and sesame seeds in the dressing itself, but half of those sesame seeds I'll lightly toast on a pan with no oil, just lightly toast them on the pan until they start to get a little tiny bit of brownness to them. And then I'll take half those toasted sesame seeds and mix them in the dressing with the raw sesame seeds, with the cashews and the orange and the lemon and the blood orange vinegar. That's the dressing recipe. But the other half of the toasted sesame seeds, I didn't mix in the dressing. Then I cut the kiwis and the orange slices on top of the salad and sprinkle some of the rest of the toasted sesame seeds on the top after the dressing's been mixed with the blood orange vinegar, with the orange dressing. You got that? So here's the salad dressing chart. And you guys have these charts right in your books. But in any case, so I'm usually picking some nut and seed, and obviously the nut or seed takes the place of oil, right? It's the fat content, because obviously you heard enough about that. And then we try to get some flavor in there, and you don't have to use vinegar, but vinegar adds a nice degree of acidity. Sometimes you can just use fruit juice with a nut and seed mixed together. You can just use orange juice and not use vinegar. In other words, you could use the juice itself, or just using lemon is pretty good, or just use kiwi, or just use, in other words, use a kind of sour type fruit. Even berries are good with nuts and seeds. And a little bit of vinegar brings out that a really interesting flavor, more concentrated flavor, because when you're mixing it with a salad, the dressing itself doesn't have to be so bland, like a pudding. It could have a little more bite and spice to it, because this mixing it with the tomatoes and the juices and the other things in the salad are going to dilute the flavor somewhat anyway. So when you're making for a party or for company, you can taste the dressing a little more zingy or a little more spicy. It's going to always be a little milder when you actually finish mixing it in the salad. All right. So you want to add. So we might add garlic, roasted garlic or sliced garlic or even raw garlic, scallions chopped up or mixed in the dressing, right? Frozen fruit, like we make a strawberry dressing, a raspberry dressing on salad, a blueberry dressing, a pineapple type dressing. Dijon mustard works nicely, especially when you're mixing it with nuts. Dijon mustard with avocado, Dijon mustard with pistachio nuts, Dijon mustard with macadamia nuts. In other words, works mustard as a mustard base with oil, with the fat from the nuts works very good. And nutritional yeast gives it that cheesy-like flavor. And that's what we use to get the mixture between the nutritional yeast and the garlic, gives it that our Caesar dressing really comes from the flavor of nutritional yeast mixed with roasted garlic, right? And our veggie zest and tomato zest are really just very mild spices. The tomato zest has sun-dried tomatoes mixed in it, right? And the veggie zest is more a bland, almost like a greens tea supplement, and it's mild enough that you could make a dressing out of it by using, for example, a nut or seed with the veggie zest to give it a little bit of flavor, and then mixed with a mild vinegar. And then you usually, these are some other options. We like the orange cashew dressing I mentioned. I also make a dressing out of, instead of the orange, I use carrot juice as the base, with carrot juice and cashews. And then instead of I don't use lemon or blood orange vinegar then. When I mix the carrot juice with the cashews, then I choose to use something like nutritional yeast or spices into it, to mix like spices like a mild pepper, thyme, oregano, those type of spices, basil, oregano, carrot juice, cashews. That type of dressing tastes very good. Fruit preserves, like a little bit of like a dessert wine, or a sweet or a grape juice, or a fruit preserve can be used with a vinegar. Like if you're using a balsamic vinegar, the balsamic vinegar is biting, and you can dilute the biting acid taste by putting a little bit of fruit, a little bit of grapes, a little bit of raisins, a date in there, a little fruit preserve in there to mix in with the balsamic, to mix in with the nuts and seeds, gives an excellent dressing. You're getting an idea of how that you can be creative yourself by mixing together various types to make different salad dressing. The whole point is to use nuts and seeds instead of oil as your fat source.
Does it help the digestion of the salad?
No.
So it's just for taste?
It's just for flavor, yeah. And the reason, and also vinegar is only 5 calories a tablespoon. So we use it because it doesn't add much calories. Right. And these dressings in this manner, you know, they come out, they're relatively low in calories, but you can really just figure out the calorie count by the amount of nuts you use. So if you want to figure out on the high side that nuts are about 200 calories an ounce, so that we know if you put 6 ounces of nuts and seeds into the dressing, and then if you want to eat like an ounce of salad, then you know that if you put 6 ounces of nuts and seeds in the dressing, and let's say you and your husband are using 3 ounces in the evening, then you know you made enough dressing for 2 nights, right? 6 ounces of nuts gives you, for 2 people, 2 days of salad dressing, right? Assuming that, let's say a woman's going to use 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces, a man's going to use like, you know, 1.5 ounces to 3 ounces per evening, or so of nuts and seeds. But you could stretch it out more. Just that's kind of a rough idea. So here's some other salad dressings. So here's Russian fig, which is what I mentioned earlier. The fact that you don't have to use raw almond butter. You could use almonds and blend the almonds in the Vitamix. But we do it this way. I use the raw almond butter myself because I'm home from work, let's say, and I have no time. I don't want to mess up the blender or take any time. I just want to and maybe I'm just making it for one person or making a small amount. I don't even blend anything. I'll just mash it together with a fork. And then the raw almond butter comes in really handy. You don't have to even blend anything. But if you put it in the blender, you could put almonds in there. And you could even lightly toast some of those almonds if you wanted to. And then the blueberry cream dressing, we have all kinds of different blueberry dressings. This one uses pomegranate juice. But frankly, I mean, what I do most of the time is I make the blueberry dressing with blueberry vinegar. I don't use the spicy pecan. This is a good recipe. But the blueberries with the blueberry vinegar and without the pomegranate juice, with just blueberries, blueberry vinegar, and some cashews or almonds, tastes fantastic. It's a fantastic dressing. Cashew orange was mentioned. Orange peanuts really good. In this case, we put ginger and garlic in with it and peanuts. Tastes really interesting, almost like a Thai type flavor. And then a creamy sesame dressing is like a tahini-based dressing where we use the raisin vinegar. And in this case, there's some toasted sesame oil, but that's certainly optional. You don't need the sesame oil. You can use the sesame seeds and lightly toast some of those sesame seeds and get the full flavor out too. And you can also substitute raisins with the raisin vinegar, mix in the dressing, and not have the dates. This obviously, I'm looking at all these ingredients, a whole cup of soy milk, 2/3 cups of sesame seeds. This obviously is a dressing for a lot of people, for more people right here. But you can modify it, right, once you understand a couple of basic concepts. So here's just another variation on the blueberry vinegar. We're using sesame seeds and sunflower seeds to make the dressing a little higher in nutrients. You know, we make this dressing light with raw cashews, but the sesames and sunflower seeds are a little higher a little more nutrient dense. The orange cashew dressing with the lemon, you know, I like the mixture between the lemon and the blood orange vinegar, but you could use either one. You don't have to use both. And then, especially for people who have a lot of weight to lose, they're trying to utilize their nuts and seeds. They figure out their dressings. They measure out the dressing, how much ounces they put into their dressing. And if they're making a dressing with 5 ounces or 6 ounces of nuts and seeds in the recipe, then they're going to aliquot that out between, three. If they're putting 6 ounces, they want to have more than 1 ounce per day. So that's 2 people for 3 days if they put 6 ounces. Just making it for themselves, they could put 2 ounces in for 2 days or 3 ounces of nuts for 3 days, and then they know they're getting that amount of, they're keeping their calories down. And then if they want a second salad or another serving of raw vegetables with dinner, they can make a bean salsa or an eggplant hummus that they could make it without nuts and seeds or with less nuts and seeds to make it even more low calorie. So in the bean salsa, you can make a relatively low-calorie bean salsa dish by putting beans and scallions and onions or partially cooked onions. You can use raw almond butter or not, right? You put the vinegar in, and you can put more spices like a little dash of chili powder or a little dash of Mrs. Dash, which has the white and black pepper in, a mild amount of black pepper, and more oregano, parsley, and basil is always good. So this is just the word salsa just means we use tomatoes and spices. And you could make this with or without nuts and seeds. And then the eggplant hummus can be made without. The eggplant dilutes the caloric density because beans and nuts and seeds are higher caloric density. Eggplant is very low calorie. So you bake the eggplant in the oven in advance. And then you take a cold baked eggplant and skin it, peel the skin off, and whip up the eggplant with the chickpeas and the sesame seeds, with the scallions and the cloves of garlic. And in this case, we're using the garlic, 4 cloves roasted and 2 garlic cloves raw, mixing raw garlic and roasted garlic because when you roast it, you bring out a different flavor, but it's not as strong of a flavor, and the raw garlic gives it a little more of that bite with a little bit of shredded fresh horseradish and with lemon juice. So people really like this, and it's a very low-calorie hummus that can be used as a salad dressing or a dip for raw vegetables. A lot of times your salad could just be taking snow pea pods, pieces of cauliflower, broccoli, cut up celery and cucumbers and whatever vegetables from the garden, and just using it as a dip with tomatoes and using the salad dressing as a dip for raw vegetables, and that's your salad. It's not always a lettuce or leaf-based salad. The Caesar dressing dip people like, we served it here, and we said that the nutritional yeast and the roasted garlic cloves, in this case you could roast the whole 6 cloves of garlic in one shot, mixed with a little hemp milk or almond milk or soy milk, with some lemon juice and mustard. Makes a really good, very easy to make, right? In this case, it says roast the garlic, remove skins. You could remove the skins and then roast the garlic. You could roast it, then remove the skins. All those options are permissible. All right, moving on, right? We're talking about why soups are so good, and we mentioned why soups were so good when we talked about the myrosinase complex. Remember we talked about the first day that the enzyme myrosinase in the cell wall of the green vegetables, and that myrosinase is heat sensitive. So if you can blend up or cream up the vegetables first to fully activate the isothiocyanates and then throw it in the soup, the heat of the soup doesn't destroy the nutrients. The heat of the soup just deactivates the enzymes. So once the enzymic reaction occurred, it's okay to cook it in a soup. That's why soup is such a favorable food for this way of eating, because you're cooking things in a water base, and the water base prevents browning, drying out. It doesn't give you that. It doesn't form acrylamides, and you do not lose nutrients, because if you're steaming broccoli, right, then if you notice, a lot of the water that you steamed it in turns green. So you lost nutrients. You can see the green stuff right in the water. If you're putting your green vegetables into a soup, any loss of green vegetables in the water, you're consuming when you consume the liquid portion of the soup. So that's why soup is such a preferred form. So you can consider this well. It's like a salad and soup diet. It's a very simple diet. Your lunch is real simple. The lunch is the most important meal of the day, because that's the meal you eat in public, right? And that's the meal you want to be able to not avoid snacking in the afternoon. So you want to definitely take food with you for lunch. Breakfast and dinner, you're home, they're not as important. So lunch is the most important meal. So that's where it's really good to have a hearty vegetable bean soup with you, so you're not hungry or tempted to have a snack or to have other food. You're not tempted to eat later on in the afternoon, because beans are hearty and stay with you in your digestive tract and make you feel like not eating for a long time. I didn't think I ate too much personally at lunch yesterday, but after I did the short exercise class and Deborah's yoga class, then it was time for dinner at like 6 o'clock. and I wasn't hungry at all for dinner. Then I just like tasted a few things, had a little piece of papaya. I must have eaten like 200 calories or something for dinner, because I really wasn't hungry by then, Because usually I'm probably used to eating dinner later. I guess the amount of space between the meals here is so tight, it's hard to get hungry. So we have to, pay a little attention to be conscious of not eating a big lunch because we're eating such an early dinner, right? But overall, and then if it's better, it's okay, because you can vary it. And you can go with how you're feeling. Sometimes you may want to eat a light dinner, like a tasting dinner, so you have more appetite for breakfast, right? Because I don't want you to make your breakfast too heavy. I don't want because breakfast is not the meal where you're going to eat a lot of greens, so I don't want you to eat a lot of nuts in that meal. So breakfast is somewhat lighter. So back to the soups and stews. The purpose of the soups and stews is to get your leafy greens into you, especially those leafy greens that don't taste good raw. Because I don't like broccoli raw. It's too bitter. And I don't like, turnip greens and mustard greens raw, but they're superfoods, and they taste great when you cook them added to soup. I can eat kale raw and collards raw and watercress raw and arugula raw, so I'll more than not want to look for things I don't like raw to add to the soups. So in this case, we're talking about cabbages and Swiss chard and bok choy, broccoli rabe, mustard and turnip greens. These are so high nutrient foods and great to use cooked into your soups, right? And I used to, put them in the whole leaf in the soup, just like this. And a lot of times when I prep the kale, I'll often, to make the chopped California kale dish that we served here, I'll remove the stems. So remove the stems from the kale. So I'll just hold the kale after it's washed and just put your hand down and just pull the stem right off the kale like that, right? So just pull it off, and then obviously if you're making it into the soup, I might blend it. If I'm making it into the chopped kale dish, I wouldn't probably cut it and chop it now. I'd probably just steam it like this, and then when it comes out of the colander after it's lightly steamed, then I'll put it in a towel-lined bowl. A towel, because it's wet, right? Maybe even dump it out into the colander, because usually I'm cooking it in a colander, right? The steamer basket in the steamer is like a colander. So you're taking it out, pushing it down a little bit with the back of a ladle, shaking the water out, and now I'm going to dump it into a towel-lined bowl, and I'm going to fold the towel over it and push down on it and squeeze the water out, all right? So now my kale is wet, but not sopping wet. If it's too wet, when you put the cream sauce or dressing on top, the water in the kale thins out the cream sauce and you have no flavor of the sauce. So now I have cooked kale that's not too wet, and now I can chop it in a wooden bowl with my hand chopper or with some of those mechanical choppers, right? And I'll chop it relatively fine. And as I'm chopping the kale, then I'll get it like half chopped, and then I'll be making the cream sauce for it, which usually my kids love the cashew butter cream sauce. It tastes better with raw cashews, not cashew butter. We've done it both ways. The cream sauce definitely tastes better with fresh raw cashews blended with soy milk or hemp milk. And then I like to add some kind of spices to that or flavorings to it, but my children, and especially my son, likes it with nothing. It's just plain cashews. He doesn't want anything added to it, just plain cashews and soy milk mixed together on the kale. And amazingly, we can never make enough. So when we usually go to a health food store or wherever we go to buy our kale, we buy all the kale in the store every time we go. What's that? So we buy all the kale in the store, and however much we make at home, there's never enough. Because the kids eat huge amounts, and I want to have leftover for the next day. I want to take some work with me the next day. It's always gone within a day or two. So we do eat a lot of kale. So getting back to the soup or stew base, what makes, I think, my nutritarian style of cooking unique is the fact that we actually juice fresh vegetables to make the soup base, right? And I find that, I've made what I call my, quote, anti-cancer soup for years with either a carrot juice base or a carrot celery or carrot tomato base. We always use the fresh squeezed carrot juice. And I'll even have, over the years gone by, I've had sometimes served patients the soup in my office. And when they go home and duplicate it, they always come back and say, it tasted better in your office. I made it at home and it didn't taste as good. And I always say the same thing, that's because you didn't juice organic carrots. They juiced non-organic carrots, didn't taste as good. Or a lot of times they put the carrots in the Vitamix machine and blended them in. They didn't juice them first. Or they bought store-bought carrot juice that wasn't fresh squeezed organic carrot juice. In other words, they ruined the flavor of the soup because they didn't prepare the carrot juice the same way I prepared it. It's the same way in this hotel. At the beginning of the week, they served us the orange cashew dressing as a trial, and it didn't taste very good. And I was thinking, why doesn't it taste as good as when I do it at home? So I went in the back with them. We were trying to figure it out. And I said, well, let's taste the oranges you used. And they got out the big case of oranges. I peeled and tasted an orange. And I said, there's the answer. The orange tastes flat. It's not a really high-quality orange. The point is, the quality of the juice you use, the quality of the carrots you have, the quality of the tomatoes you juice, the quality of the oranges that you put into your dressing determines the quality of how the final product's going to taste, right? So it may be good to... So clearly, we find that using real organic carrots that are juiced fresh tastes the best when put in the base of the soup. So I'll juice maybe a whole 5-pound bag of carrots, which gives me 1.5 quarts of carrot juice, and I'll put that in the soup base with 2 quarts of water. And I'll take the pulp that came out of the juicer. If I'm using, it depends on the type of juicer you use. In the Breville juicer, it separates the pulp, and it's pretty quick to juice carrots, but the pulp is a little bit damp. So in the Breville, I'll take the damp pulp and I'll form it into a ball, and I'll put it back and juice it a second time to get a little extra juice out of it, not to waste it, right? But if I'm using the Omega juicer, the Omega or the Champion or the Green Star, and we have the Omega juices available now, which we find that the reason I'm using them over the Omega now is because when people wanted, for juicing carrots, they're both okay, but when you're juicing and adding greens to a juice like kale or parsley, the centrifugal juices don't extract as much of the fluid, so you waste a little bit of the vegetable unless you try to juice it, the pulp through a second or third time. So the Omega juicer makes the pulp a little more dry. You get a little better production out of the juice production out of the vegetable. So you don't really have to put the pulp through the juicer a second time when using the Omega or the Green Star juicer because it makes the pulp more dry. It's more those auger type juices instead of the centrifugal juices. You understand the difference? Okay, so I juiced my carrots. I added the water. So let's go over. Let's make the soup. Let's make the anti-cancer soup or the high cruciferous soup from scratch. You ready? Let's get started. The first thing you do is we put the water in the pot, and we're using about 2 quarts of water and 1.5 quarts to 2 quarts of carrot juice. We're using about 4 quarts of liquid in there. So I'm going to put the water in the pot and the beans first, because the first thing is the beans take the longest to cook. So I'm starting cooking. Right? I may have even started it before by putting the beans in the refrigerator soaking the day before. I may put soaked beans in, which speeds up the cooking. But sometimes I forgot to do that. Doesn't matter. Still good. Put the beans in your pot, put the water in, cover it up, put the flame on. That's the first thing you do. Right? Next thing you do is that we're going to juice our 5-pound bag of carrots. So I take the 5-pound bag of carrots, I put it through the juicer, and I take that juice I produced, and I maybe save some, but most of it I just dump right in the pot. It's on a low flame. Lower the flame a little bit now that it's boiling. Put it on a very low flame. And the beans are simmering, the carrot juice is simmering. And now I take the juicer and I clean it up. I clean my area. I clean up the juicer and I put the juicer completely away. And now I'm going to add my onions and vegetables to the soup. And we know that the carrots, the mushrooms, the tomatoes, those things, the nutrients are not enhanced by blending, cutting, and pureeing beforehand because there's no myrosinase activity in the cell wall. It's only the onion family and the green cruciferous family where you have to prep it, so that's what I'm going to do next. I can put my mushrooms and my carrots and my spices and the other things in last. But right now, I'm going to prep the foods that need to be cut up or diced, so that's the onion family. So it's the onion and the kale and the bok choy and the leeks. I'm going to take out my Vitamix now, and I'm going to blend my green. I'm always going to have some onion family in the soup, right? Scallions, leeks, and onions in the soup. I'm always going to have a green family in the soup, because the whole purpose of the soup is to eat, so I can eat my mushrooms, my onions family, and my greens, my anti-cancer foods, right? That's what, and in a convenient form to grab it and take it to work with me. So I'm going to take take some of the kale that I don't have to shred it for the stems now because I'm not going to eat it whole. I'm going to put it in the soup. It's going to get soft and blended anyway. So I take the kale and I just cut the base of the kale off, maybe where the stems are, leaving the leaves of the kale, and I can cut it roughly to put it in the Vitamix. I can take my leeks, cut the base of the leek off, right, to remove the root, right? And I'll cut maybe a little bit of the top just to take the edges off the top. In this case, they already cut the top off, but usually I'll trim the top. I trim the top and the base of the leek, and I very often will add leek in the soup. Then I'll slice the leek up the middle, right? A center cut, long way up the center of the leek, right? So now the leek's cut in half, so I can unravel each leaf of the leek because a lot of dirt collects in here under the leek. So we want to unravel the leek and make sure that every, see the dirt in there? You don't want to wash the leek whole. You want to unravel every single leaf when you wash it. So the cut up the middle is so you can take it all apart and now put this in the bowl in my sink and actually hand wash the dirt out of all the center of the leek. Now I got the leeks already washed. I can slice them up. I can slice them up coarsely with the kale I sliced up coarsely. I can add, and of course the onion. I took my onion, and here they're prepped already, but I take the root section of the onion and cut that first. Cut the root section so it faces away from my body, because that's where the smell and the eye tearing and the burning of the eyes occur, mostly from the root section of the onion. So you want to do that first and keep it pointed away or away from you. Further away, farther away from you. Be careful of your fingers. And then once the root's cut away, I keep it pointing away from me, cut the top off, and then cut the top off. Then I cut a thin score around the edge and remove the paper skin that we're not eating. In this case, it's removed already. And then I'll cut the onion straight through the center and slice the onion up. And now I have the onion sliced, right, with the kale sliced and the leek. And it's the onion family and the kale family, not the mushroom family. You don't want to cut your mushrooms. And I'm going to take these and put them in the Vitamix. And now I'm going to ladle a little liquid out of the soup. Take one ladle of liquid out of the soup, put it in my Vitamix, mix it with the kale and the onion and the leek, and turn on the Vitamix and puree it down to a smooth, creamy puree. So it gives off this smell that stinks up the whole kitchen because we're creating this chemical reaction. This is our chemistry set that's making all these anti-cancer compounds right in front of us. Right? Okay, now I take it right out of the Vitamix and I pour it directly into the pot of the soup, right? And I'll ladle a little liquid in the soup in the Vitamix just to clean it, get all the little bit of greens that are stuck to the bottom, maybe even turn it on again so it's a lighter getting everything out of there, dump it into the soup mix, and now I cover the top of the soup, keep it on a low flame, and I clean the Vitamix and put that away, all right? And now I move on to putting in spices, mushrooms, sliced carrots, sun-dried tomatoes, anything else I want to add to the soup. So now I'm putting in my finishing touches. I put the base in. I got the base. It could be tomato juice. It could be celery juice. Could be hemp milk. Could be a boxed veggie broth. But I prefer to use fresh squeezed vegetable juice the most. Fresh squeezed, especially in the summertime when you can get like organically grown fresh tomatoes from the garden. You could make a great tomato-based soup with carrots and celery. You can get fresh organic vegetables. We buy at the co-op, that fresh box of vegetables every week to juice some of those fresh vegetables, and then cut up the leafy greens, put in the onion. So the mushrooms we put in now, and the spices putting in now, and maybe some flavorings putting in now, oregano, cilantro, parsley, and I like dill, cut dill up and put it in, maybe in whole, slice it up fine and put the dill in. And the beans, of course, we put in first because they're already cooking the longest. Now it's on a low flame, and I'm going to cook this, let the soup cook slowly for about 2 hours, and then shut the flame off and let it sit there for another hour with no flame. So it's still the beans are still softening, and then after it's sat for an extra hour and cooled down a bit, then you can put it, or at least an hour, then you can put it in your refrigerator, sealed with a cap with a top on, exactly as it is, right in you can eat some that night, and then put the rest of it away, and so it's much easier to work with when the pot's cool. To handle the hot pot is hard, and to put it out into plastic containers. Because once you're putting hot soup into plastic, we prefer you put cold soup into plastic. We don't want to add any heat to the plastic. There's more likelihood of getting some plastic microparticles into the food. Was that useful to go over how we make the soup? Yes. Okay. So here's a high cruciferous recipe, like the anti-cancer soup. And keep in mind that they have available today dried mushrooms and fresh mushrooms. They're both good. And I used to teach people in the past that the anti-cancer mushrooms, the shiitake, the morel, the cremini, that all these great anti-cancer mushrooms, that some are more nutritious than others. And now we found out from the more recent science that all mushrooms have such powerful anti-cancer effects that just use a variety of mushrooms that are all great. But they're better cooked, and the best way to cook them and eat them is in stews and soups. And they make great, and they come in different degrees of chewiness. Some are softer, some are more chewy. And the shiitake mushrooms are the ones that have that cap with the long stem, right? And that little black knob at the end of the stem. So we cut off and throw away the very black stem. I cut off and throw that away. But the rest of the stem is edible. Don't throw the whole stem away on the shiitake mushrooms. After all, they're $10 a pound anyway. So just cut away that little black knob and then use the whole shiitake mushroom. The stem is chewy and crunchy and good in the soup. So this soup recipe is different because it mixes carrot and celery juice together, right? And there's a little more juice here than there actually is water, which increases the flavor, and the celery juice gives it a nice salty flavor. The veggie zest is mixed with Mrs. Dash, and here we added cashew butter or raw cashews to the soup. I have a lot of recipes with cashews in it, I know. It's not because it's any special health property, it's just because I love the taste of cashews. And of course, you don't have to put broccoli, sprouts, and kale, and collards, and broccoli rabe. Whatever fresh, whatever available, pick the greens that are available and fresh, and mix any two types of greens into the soup that you can get. And here's one of the original recipes for the anti-cancer soup. What makes it this different is we use lots of zucchini, because zucchini adds water content to the soup, flavorful water like the carrots do. So we don't have to add as much water. We can add zucchini for part of the water, and of course it has carrot juice. Where's the carrot juice here? There it is, 5 pounds of carrot juice, right? 5 pounds of carrot juice, right? A little less water because you have a lot of zucchinis added to it to add the flavor to it. And in this case, you throw the zucchinis in whole. Cut the little stem off the top of the zucchini, put the whole zucchini in the soup. When it's done, soft, take it out with the tongs, put it in your Vitamix. So here you might change the order a little bit. You could put the water in and the zucchini in next with the beans. And then when you go to blend the broccoli rub or the kale in with the soup with the leek, you could ladle a little bit of the water out, and you could take the zucchini out, put it in the Vitamix, and blend it together. So the zucchini is actually blended into the soup, part of the smooth base. The crunchy part of the soup, the things you don't blend, would be, I guess, the mushrooms, the beans. We can add some celery. You could use part of the celery and carrots. You can leave part of this chunky stuff. When you're making the onion, when you're making kale, collards, any ingredients to the soup, you can always choose your own preference to leave part of it cut up, shredded in small pieces in the soup, blending or pureeing a large portion of it, whatever you prefer, or blending all of it. We like to have that contrast between some part smooth and creamy and some part crunchy and lumpy. This is a review slide, right? We talked about this, roasting garlic, using tomato paste, sun-dried tomatoes, soaking them in advance. Soaking dried fruits. I'll use soaked dried fruits to make ice cream usually, or sometimes to flavor a salad dressing. So I might get organically grown apricot that's hard and soak it in water too to make it more mushy so I can blend it into a dressing. I can make a wok a vegetable in like a pineapple tomato base. Or I can cook a squash dish or cook a vegetable dish with apricots and walnuts and make all kinds of things. So I usually keep some soaked dried fruits. I'll also make vegetable dishes with soaked prunes to make like a combination between the sweet sour taste, mixing prunes or dried peaches into a soup. I've done that in the past, which is good. Roasting peppers in the oven. Mostly roasting red peppers, using cold roasted red peppers that have been roasted in advance in the oven on your salads, as a salad garnish. A part of it in your salad is really good. Toasting sesame seeds and almonds we mentioned, right? Using fresh herbs which add nutrients, like dill, basil, parsley, and oregano fresh. Wokking vegetables with a mixture of pineapple and tomato to give it the Hawaiian flavor. Using nutritional yeast on top of popcorn, or in salad dressings and sauces. And of course, our gourmet flavored vinegars are a great way to add flavor to their salad dressing. So that's pretty much review. Little tips and tricks. I mean, you have something chewy and crunchy and so a lot of times we'll take tofu and very extra firm tofu and slice it very thin and roast it on a wire rack in the oven on a very low flame. I'll sometimes roast the tofu on a very low temperature, like 200 degrees, for a couple of hours even, to make it get hard, but not, that just dehydrates it, makes it hard. And then, of course, if you put some sliced raw onion or tomato sauce or thinly sliced tomatoes on it, that gets hard and dried out too. Like, and it gives you, you wind up having this chewy, like pizza. So, of course, this one has garlic and onion, nutritional yeast, tomato sauce mixed on top, or you could just make them straight. Just roasted, slowly cooked tofu is kind of like, and then you can cube it and chop it up and eat it in a salad or just eat it in a snack. My son likes to take it as a snack to school with him, actually, just to have roasted pieces of hard tofu, chewy tofu. Now, when you're making tofu dishes and tofu chilies, a good secret is that you might want to freeze the block of tofu in the freezer first. Because when you freeze it and then crumble it, or freeze it, let it partially defrost and then crumble it, it gives it a more chewy and meaty, like crumbly texture. So instead of having lumps or squares of tofu, you have tofu spread through the dish like chopped meat. That's more crunchy. So in here we use that technique of freezing the tofu first and then mixing it to make a chili, right? So here a chili is basically garlic and onions and peppers with tomatoes and some chili powder and red beans mixed in, right? So we make a nice basic tofu chili. Yes?
Is a green pepper an unripe red pepper?
Yes. There are thousands of different, there's lots of different varieties of peppers, and some green peppers are mild and some are spicy, but generally speaking, all mild red peppers start out as green peppers. And you can eat them green, or you can let them turn red. Yes? Well, I have the brand that we use at home with a yellow cap on it. Is that Bragg's? Maybe it is Bragg's Nutritional Yeast? Uh-huh. But I haven't, experimented and trialed a lot of different brands to give you my, accurate, to know which brand tastes better, or so what's this one I use, Of course, mentioning that your lunch is usually salad and soup, and your dinner, clearly you want to have some cooked greens with dinner. That's usually my stable, basic skeleton of the diet, just to keep the skeleton in your mind, to make planning easy. Lunch is usually salad and soup, because it has the beans and the mushrooms mixed in, it's good take to work with me. And dinner is some kind of raw vegetables with a dip, or another salad, or a smoothie, with some cooked green vegetables. Pretty simple. Now, you're not going to just eat that alone. You could add something to it, but you want to at least make that as your base, right? You might want to add a piece of corn on the cob in the summertime. You want to add a fruit sorbet for dessert. You want to add, peas and carrots, or a squash dish, or whatever you're adding to it, but you want to get your green vegetables in, and you want the green vegetables. You want a good hefty sized portion of greens. And I love to use artichokes because they're so flavorful with nothing on them. They're such a great vegetable. So I'll cut off that little black stem at the base, right? I'll remove a little of the leaves, the baby leaves in the bottom. Usually, if it's an artichoke that has a lot of sticky things that can cut you or something, I'll sometimes cut the top off, not always, cut the top off the artichoke. And I won't steam it like this because it'll take too long to steam like this. And then you'll have to overcook it to get the inside soft. And here, too, it's hard when they're cooking for so many people. They have a tendency to overcook the artichokes, to make them too mushy and too soft. I want them soft with just a little degree of firmness. So it helps if you cut the artichoke down the center. So I'll cut the artichoke down the center of the artichoke, and now I've exposed two halves. The choke is this area right here. You see this fuzzy stuff? That that's the part you don't want to eat. But the choke has a lip on it. You see that right below the lip, right here, is the most delicious part of the artichoke. You don't want to miss any of that. And I'm usually taking a small sharp knife, and I'm going to cut right along that lip. But you actually go deeper into the artichoke than you would normally think you would. You press down pretty far down into the artichoke. And now I take those bottom leaves, that triangle piece, and remove it from the artichoke. So that fuzzy part now is gone, right? So now I can wash it like this and then steam it just like this, exposing the center, so I don't have to steam it that long. It's still going to get soft without having to steam it for half an hour. About 15 minutes. And you know it's done because when the outer leaf, you can pull with the tongs, grab onto an outer leaf, and here the outer leaf, the whole artichoke will come up in the air, and I can shake it. But when it's in the pot, you can pull the leaf right off the artichoke very easily. When one leaf separates, they're all done. And you don't have to cook it forever, And then, of course, these leaves right here, these yellow top leaves, right? The whole leaf becomes edible. So you could eat this whole leaf pretty much almost near the top. As you move to the outer section of the artichoke, these leaves become too tough to eat, and then you eat only the bottom part of the leaf. And you can take a knife, like a butter knife even, and pull them out and shred off the bottom part, the edible part of the artichoke with a butter knife, and serve an artichoke dip or an artichoke for kids who don't want to do that. And then you can also, I eat the whole stem, right? And you can actually trim down the artichoke right to remove the outer leaves, which you don't want to waste them, you can de-stem them. But if you move a few of the outer leaves and you took the real center out, then you're left with the choke itself, the best part of the artichoke, right? So this part here, usually when it's cooked, this just tears right off like that. So this part here, the whole thing, obviously these leaves would have been pulled away, and then this choke part is really all edible, right? This is the center part of the artichoke, the center part, the part that has the best flavor. This is all edible part. And artichoke has, and a lot of times if you're on a diet or you're diabetic or want to lose weight, this is a food, you eat a lot of artichokes. It really fills you up, takes away your hunger for a long time. You don't have to really, it's so easy to make and cook. You don't need sauces and seasonings because it tastes so good, just plain the way it is. How many of you eat artichokes a lot? Eat a lot of artichokes? Yeah. I could have them all the time. I'll take them cold the next day for work, the cooked artichokes, and I'll just eat a couple of artichokes with my lunch the next day for work, just ripping apart and eating cold artichokes. So steamed greens every night. Snow pea pods, string beans, sliced zucchini and onions, broccoli, baby bok choy is great. Asparagus is also easy to make, that doesn't need much seasonings. You want to eat a steamed green vegetable every night with dinner because the whole point here is the portion sizes, right? We want the raw vegetables and the cooked greens to be a bigger portion, and the nuts and seeds or the beans or the starchy portion will be a smaller portion. Here's a quinoa and nut loaf recipe, right? Where I think, was this recipe out there for lunch today? No, something like that. Oh, it was a lentil loaf. So here's a quinoa loaf where pine nuts and filberts were used. And you could use other types of nuts, but filberts are particularly good when making pies, vegetable dishes, and nut loaves, because they're good when they still maintain their flavor when they're heated. They don't get mushy. Cashews can get like mush when they're cooked into dishes. So filberts are really good to maintain their quality when they're heated or cooked in a loaf. This is a recipe, the cauliflower spinach mashed potatoes is a dish that really tastes and looks like mashed potatoes, where it's made by cauliflower. And people really love this. So it's really a cauliflower dish. So it's cauliflower with spinach mixed in, and with a little cashew or milk needed to thin it, and season it. A real simple recipe, just cauliflower cooked with spinach, and when you mix in a little bit of cashew butter or blended cashews, it tastes like a really interesting almost, and looks like mashed potato and spinach. And of course, it's much more nutritious with a better glycemic index. So even though that cauliflower is somewhat higher in starch than green vegetables are, right? It still is a cruciferous vegetable and has a much higher nutrient profile and lower glycemic index, and more, it's much better quality than to make mashed potatoes from cauliflower than it would be from white potatoes, right? The rule of thumb is all carbohydrates are okay, but we want to kind of minimize our use of white potato because that's the carbohydrate with the highest glycemic index with the least nutrition. And here's the kale dish, right, with which we talked about. Even though the picture is a little bit weird looking, it has like the kale on top of it, not mixed in smoothly. The California cream kale. Don't ask me why it's called California cream kale. I guess because where are cashews grown? In India. No, I think they're mostly grown in Turkey or something, right? This is the sweet potato shepherd's pie is a great recipe. I know it because whenever we make it in my house, my kids have arguments. Who had a bigger piece? She had more than me. How come I can't have that as much as she, whatever it is. I need leftover for school tomorrow. I can't eat it now. You can't have some, Dad, because I got to take some. I got to have it to take with me tomorrow when I'm going back to college, whatever it is. So in other words, this is really delicious recipe. And I think that using the hazelnuts in the base really makes the recipe. I really think that the hazelnuts, the chopped nuts, it says optional, but I really think that I love that sensation of the chopped nuts in the base of the shepherd's pie. And I think that hazelnuts are definitely the best here for this type of pie. So obviously, the parsley on top doesn't mean that much, but it's really, it's the sweet potato mixed in with the vegetables that make the sweet potato kind of like crunchy and the great mouthfeel, and the nuts at the base. It's a terrific recipe. It's in the Eat for Health books, the 2-book set. Don't forget to try that recipe. It has a lot of great people scoring it very highly. All right, going on. We're going on to soups, right? No, smoothies. Smoothies, because, here's the thing. If you're going to eat a salad, take the effort to chew it really well, all right? Don't waste it. It's such a wonderful thing to, if you're eating a salad here for lunch, focus on really chewing it, those fine baby vegetables. They're serving such good quality lettuce here. It's so fresh. I hate when those mixed baby vegetable mixes have like wet, or they're a little bit rotten, but they're obviously so fresh and vibrant. And when you get fresh lettuce, especially baby lettuce is such a superfood. Chew it really, really well, and that takes time to chew. You got to sit down and take a half hour to eat your salad and really chew it well, to liquefy it all in your mouth before you swallow it, not to waste the nutrients. But a lot of times I clearly don't have that time to sit and relax and eat a salad, so I might come back for the gym and have to get to work. So making a smoothie and throwing some greens into the smoothie is better than me throwing a salad down that didn't chew very well, right? At least you're going to break open all those cells and release all those nutrients. So I'll take an apple, a couple of kiwis, a piece of a plantain, and throw it in the blender and put my salad in there and blend it down and drink it in a cup on the way to work or something. So it's a great way to of course, get your raw green vegetables into it, and you don't have to worry about really chewing it that well. So the Vitamix or the Blendtec are examples of 2 high-powered blender. I obviously have both and have tried both many times. I still like the Vitamix the best because I like the plunger. I don't like sitting there waiting for something to happen. I want it to happen now when I want it to happen, and I like taking action and shoving that stuff down into the base rather than turning on the Blendtec and like waiting for it to go slower and faster and do whatever it does. I want to just go, and push it down. So the smoothies, and especially when you're using the blenders on frozen fruits to make a sorbet, I think it's helpful to have the plunger. And also when you're making the frozen sorbets, which is coming up next, it's helpful to put some fresh fruit mixed with the frozen fruit, because it really helps it blend smoother in the Vitamix. All right, so here we're talking about smoothies, and we're talking about picking your greens, right? What kind of greens you want to pick for your smoothie. Clearly, spinach is the green that hides very well in the smoothie because you don't get a spinachy taste. So if you're making a blueberry smoothie, it tastes like blueberry. If you're making a chocolate smoothie, it tastes like chocolate. Spinach hides well when it's blended. The flavor of lettuce comes through a little more, especially the flavor of those mixed field greens and lettuces that can come through better. Except when you use Boston lettuce, or Bibb lettuce, you can hide the flavor of that pretty well in the smoothie as well. So liquid is optional. You can just put the greens in right with some fruit, especially if the fruit is like partially frozen or partially defrosted or fresh. You could throw the fruit right in with the greens and blend it together. You might want to mix something else to flavor it more, to give it more of an exotic taste, or you can add some seeds in it like chia flax or hemp seeds to add more, omega-3 protein nutrition, right? And then if you want to, it could be you could add a little juice or something like a melon or a peeled orange or something like that, but eventually it's basically a way to get some green vegetables into you when you don't have the time to cook and a lot of time to chew. And a lot of people do is they'll maybe eat 1 salad a day. We don't want people to smoothie all their greens because obviously they're not going to use their teeth enough. And we want to use your teeth. We don't want you to be drinking and blending and eating everything like baby food. Right? You want to use your jaw muscles and use your teeth like any other part of your body. So we want you to chew salads and eat some real food that are crunchy and require chewing. And then so you could have a smoothie once a day or a fresh glass of vegetable juice once a day, but at least one of your salads you should be eating whole, okay? And here's some good smoothie recipes. The Got Green smoothie, that was this morning? Wasn't that this morning? Yesterday? Must be getting senile. And a chocolate smoothie, which has spinach and Boston lettuce, because I used Boston lettuce, not romaine lettuce, because the Boston lettuce is hidden. You don't taste the flavor. You just taste the banana, the cocoa, and the blueberries, and and the brown chocolate is nice because it hides the green color, and people can't see there's greens in it. I mean, the blueberry orange, of course, has lettuce and spinach mixed as well. I'm trying to have some lettuce mixed in with the spinach, so people just don't put spinach in every single smoothie. And then mentioning all these milks that are available today. I particularly, I don't choose to use rice milk. I think it's not really a very low nutrient source and more glycemic and more like sugar water, not too nutritious. Certainly I'm going to choose one of the top 4, and when possible, in your cooking or in your eating, I prefer you use the unsweetened variety. I know there's a great unsweetened vanilla hemp milk that I like. It's not sweet, but still has the vanilla flavor. It's excellent to use when you're using it when you're mixing it in a compote or a soaking of a dried fruit or something. I love actually taking, dried pear, dried peach, dried apricot, dried mango, and soaking it overnight in hemp milk or soy milk. It's incredible. The really thing you got to watch for it is that it tastes so good you want to eat the whole bag of dried fruit in one sitting. So you got to be careful. You're just using it as part of a recipe or as a treat, just having a little bit. You don't want to eat like 3 pounds of dried apricots after dinner. I could tell you what happens when you do that, but I'd rather not. Here's another smoothie recipe, where this one is more peachy and fruity, and like the dessert you had today, Jen is my middle daughter. Jen is peach freeze. It wasn't supposed to be a smoothie. It was supposed to be an ice cream. It was supposed to be made with frozen peaches that you mix in with the ingredients, and it's served in a dish with an ice cream and a spoon like you're eating cold, and they just did it wrong. But it still wasn't bad, but it was much better when it's frozen. So a lot of these smoothies you can make into, obviously, sorbets, and that's what we're doing now, making sorbets. And here's when I take my secret ingredient to the sorbet, like one of my favorite ice creams is to make mango ice cream. Do you guys remember that recipe? It's coming up, right? It's dried mango that's been soaked. And I went to a Whole Foods market a few months ago, and I did a food demo, and people were walking by giving them a taste of mango ice cream after one of my lectures. And they hadn't soaked the mangoes in advance, the dried mango, in the hemp milk or the soy milk. So I thought it wouldn't come out well. So they just started soaking it right when I was there, and within like a half an hour, it was already soft and usable. So I soak them overnight, but I found out if you soak it for like a half hour, an hour, it still works. It softens the dried mango, and you mix the hemp milk that the mango soaked in right in the blender with the dried mango with frozen mango, right? And then I also put lemon in there. The lemon makes it less sweet, but really adds a great flavor to it. And that makes a fantastic, smooth and creamy ice cream. And the secret ingredient to that is the dehydrated coconut. So now it's the coconut and the lemon and the dried mango and the hemp milk, all those ingredients, because the coconut gives it that creamy mouthfeel, like you're eating real ice cream, not an ices, right? So the 2 recipes I use the most here, the strawberry sorbet and the mango coconut, these are the 2 ones I use the most. So because my kids like this one the best, I use the most so this one is just a bag of frozen strawberries, and sometimes if I have some fresh strawberries in the house, I'll throw some fresh strawberries in with the frozen strawberries to make it blend better in the Vitamix. And I'll use the slices of unsweetened dried pineapple that's very hard and dry, and you don't buy the kind it's like sugar, that is like sugary and real sweet. There's like sweetened dried pineapple. It's completely unsweetened. It's very hard and dry, like a rock, like a brick, and you take it off and you soak it overnight in orange juice. So now you have this soaked dried pineapple that you soaked in orange juice overnight, and now you mix it with the frozen strawberries into a great strawberry sorbet. Some people even like lemon in with it. The kids like that biting flavor, that pineapple strawberry mix. And when I've tested them, and when I've tested with kids in the neighborhood, making like a cherry chocolate or dates and frozen cherries and peaches. They like the strawberry with the pineapple and the lemon the best because it's not as sweet. They seem to like the one that's less sweet. Either the lemon coconut mango, or the lemon pineapple strawberry. They like that combination, that feel, and the mouth feel. So going back to sorbets here, lots of options. You've got to use your imagination. You have to make your own recipes and submit them. But of course, you can add cocoa powder. You can add coconut, right? You could add carob powder, right? Raw carob powder to it. What I do a lot, is I used to make fudgesicle pops for the kids. Those recipes are in the book, Disease Proof Your Child, How to Make Fudgesicle Pops for Kids. Because when you make an ice bean like this, it tastes pretty good if you whip it on the spot. So it's still fluffy and so like soft ice cream. But if you put it in the freezer, in the Tupperware, and you let it get hard, and you bite into some of these recipes, it'll be like a rock. So to make it like a fudgesicle and creamy, we mix the cashew nuts in with it, or the cashew butter, like cashew butter, banana, and cocoa powder. But the basic recipe I made when my kids were young, the fudgesicle pops were raw carob powder, cashews, banana, and you can do it with any fresh fruit, mixed with the nuts and the seeds. In the Vitamix, make it creamy and smooth, because the nut, when a nut is frozen, it doesn't become hard, it becomes a soft creaminess like fudge. So now you take the fudgesicle out of the fudge pops. You ever seen those Tupperware things where you pour them in, you put the top in, and you take the bottom under a hot water, so it starts to just melt, and it pulls out really easy, and then you have the fudgesicle pops, a real delicious treat. And you can experiment with those too. And you could, in those cases, you would use hemp seeds, cashew nuts, macadamia nuts, coconut to make it creamy like an ice milk or a fudgesicle, as opposed to the Vitamix blended ice cream or soft ice cream, right? No, I use both. They're both. You have options, right? You do whatever you prefer. So this is just unsweetened vanilla soy milk, because because bananas are pretty sweet. You don't need anything to sweeten a banana. It's not like a strawberry where you want to throw something sweeter in there, right? And the walnut just makes it more creamy, just makes it that more creaminess. Berry ice cream is just using raisins to sweeten berries, because berries are not that sweet. So we're using the raisins soaked in grape juice to add like a sweetener to the berries. The apple surprise is also in my book, Disease Proof Your Child, right? Any of you have read that book or have children, right? And my kids love this. We just take raisins, cinnamon, walnuts, flax seeds, and apples, and lightly steam them. And then, of course, they served it here. And I don't know if they served it to you guys yet. Have they? No, they served it to us when we came in, and they're probably serving it to you straight, but the way we eat it at home, we usually take some frozen banana ice cream and put it on top of the warm, apple surprise, cooked apples and the walnuts and the flax seeds. It's a great way to get your kids to eat the flax seeds and the walnuts. And then, it's easy to make pies healthy. I think the other night that we served one of the pies we make. It was a hemp seed crust, right? And we put shredded beets. We usually make it at home with shredded beets and shredded carrots. You can shred almost any vegetable to make a pie. You could make shredded zucchini. You could make shredded beets and carrots, and you could mix that with fruit, right, to give it flavor. And in this case, they used apples, and a lot of times, and you can just keep it raw even, and put it on a pie crust. A pie crust can be made a lot of different ways. Sometimes I make a pie crust out of oats or oatmeal that I just break up in the Vitamix, blend up a little bit, and I'll mix it with something like flax seeds or walnuts or pecans or coconut flakes, and I'll push it into a pie crust. Sometimes I'll make a pie crust out of a cereal called Familia. There's an unsweetened Familia cereal that mixes oats and hazelnuts and dried apples together. You ever hear that brand of cereal? They make it in the red box that has sugar added, and they make it in the green and white box that has no sugar added. Pretty healthy cereal. And they make a baby cereal out of it that's finely ground. And the Familia baby cereal makes a great pie crust mixed with ground hemp seeds or flax seeds, or right? Or you can take the regular Familia cereal that isn't made into baby cereal, and you can put it in the Vitamix machine, turn the Vitamix machine on, and make it into baby cereal. Make it into a more finely grind, and mix it with something that's less finely ground, like coconut, pecans, walnuts, press it into a pie crust, put apples and raisins on top, and you got an apple pie. Or put peaches in there and you have a peach pie, right? You can make pies, and so in that case, somebody asked us for the recipe the other night. It was pretty simply made. It was just we just did it pretty raw. We just took them, and a lot of times we'll soak the pie or soak the dried apples. In this case, they soak the apples in a sweet dessert wine, and sometimes we take organically grown, unsweetened dried apples and soak them in dessert wine, and then mix it with the shredded vegetables, and it makes a great pie and that's what you had the other night. So you make a lot of great desserts. You know, the Bluvato pie is just avocado with blueberries sweetened with coconut and dates. And in this case, it has the Familia Baby cereal, uses the crust with date coconut rolls. So you ever see those they make the date rolls when they put the coconut on it, you can buy them already ground, and you can just press them with your hand down to make a crust. So in this case, you need the Familia Baby cereal, you knead into the date coconut rolls, and it can be formed and pressed into a pan to make a nice crust, to make an easy crust for a nice dessert or a special, or for a special occasion. And here's a chocolate pudding, and we make chocolate puddings and vegetable breakfast bars and all kinds of desserts, and we also put beans into the recipes. So we're making a chocolate cake, we're going to put vegetables into it. We're making a dessert, we're going to put zucchini and beets and carrots into it. We're not just going to put fruit and dried fruit. It's going to be a vegetable, a way to eat more vegetables, right? And they make the vegetables taste great. And you can make a breakfast bar or a chocolate bar out of black beans and green vegetables with a little banana and oats, and you can make it so it's not that sweet, and you can lightly bake it and make it into a bar. So you can take beans that are soaked and then cooked, and you can have the cooked prepared beans, and you can mix them right into the recipe in the puddings, in the pies, in the cakes, in the breakfast bars. And in this case, are there beans in this one? Yes, there's in the nutrient-rich chocolate pudding. They have lentils mixed in. Lentils and beets and broccoli in the chocolate pudding. And spinach. See, it's a nutrient-rich chocolate pudding, and people are amazed. Wow, this tastes like chocolate. This is great chocolate pudding, and they don't even, and you're getting spinach and lentils and other things mixed in there, right? All right, so we're finishing up here, and this is all review. And obviously, an excuse is no excuse. Means plan ahead. Plan ahead. So you can pack stuff with you when you leave the house. Don't leave yourself trapped with nothing to eat, because when you get hungry, it's better not to be tempted. And you know what? Nutritarian food made right tastes better than conventional food. It's more filling. It tastes great. You know it's healthy for you. You're emotionally satisfied. You have no guilt, and you feel good afterwards. You just got to prepare it in advance. And if you can't prepare it in advance, then wait till you get home when you can, or eat something, or eat a piece of fruit, or have or in other words, you have to always speak to a solution. You go to a restaurant, ask if they could, to ask for a double-sized salad with no dressing. Look on the side dishes, or ask them if they have any vegetable dishes they can make you with no salt and no oil and no butter. Be very careful. Like I went to a restaurant last week, and they had a side of asparagus. And it said, I think, $4 for a side of asparagus. And I said, you have me 2 sides of asparagus, 2. Charge me $8. Charge me double. You got to say that because I swear, they still bring you 1 side of asparagus. You say, give me a double-sized portion, make it a big portion, they still bring you the same type portion. You have to make it clear, charge me double, bring me twice as much. And sometimes they do if you tell them that, they do a great job then. You say, okay, give me a double-sized salad, and give me a double-sized portion of the greens there. Put the greens right on top of the salad. Give me the dressing on the side. They make this beautiful dish, with greens on, with the asparagus laid out. You'd be amazed what the simplest restaurants will do for you when you just tell them that I'm going to pay you double to give me like 2 salads and 2 sides and make a nice dish out of it. They'll go out of their way to make it nice for you. So the basic menu structure we've gone over a few times already, right? We've been continuing to reinforce it. Breakfast is mostly fruit. We're not really having much nuts in the morning, but we may have the flax seeds, the chia seeds, the hemp seeds, the omega-3 mixed in with the oats, right? We might have with a little bit of fruit, maybe a glass of vegetable juice or a smoothie, maybe some oatmeal, and then your lunch, right? Is your salad, your bean soup, a piece of fruit for dessert, or maybe your salad stuffed into a pita, a whole wheat pita pocket. And dinner, salad or a vegetable dish, always a steamed green vegetable, and maybe some mixed vegetable casserole. If you're diabetic, that mixed vegetable casserole may be mushrooms and eggplant and zucchini and peppers, right? Colored, and if you need more calories, it may be more of the starchy vegetable, more carrots and peas and corn based on your caloric needs, right? You follow me? Yes.
You've mentioned a couple of times this getaway about the nuts having them more at lunch and dinner for the absorption of the greens.
Yes.
But in the morning, I have a green smoothie, and I always have like a little bit of walnuts for help with the absorption. So should I stop those morning nuts?
No. That's great.
Right.
In other words, if you're having greens in the morning, and also I just recommended people have hemp seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, little seeds in the morning, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, have some omega-3 in the morning with your oatmeal, with your green smoothie. That's terrific. But just don't eat it. But we're talking about we want to conserve or save some of our nut allotment to be used later so we can have it more as a salad dressing. All right? So split some of that nut allotment up. So your weekly schedule, a lot of times I'll work it out. So Sunday is like a shop and cook day, and Sunday is a big shop where you'll buy everything, right? And then on Wednesday, a lesser shop, a smaller shop. Fill in with what you're missing and the more perishables like berries and things, right? Because when you're buying organic berries, because we know that strawberries can't be peeled, they're a soft absorbable food, they absorb fungicides, the fungicide they put on them are absorbed very easily. So strawberries you want to buy organic or frozen as much as possible. But because they're so expensive, the reason they're expensive is because they have such a short half-life. In other words, they go bad so fast. You got to find out when they're coming into the stores. You can get them home and eat them within a day or two, where they start to get mold on them. So you want to get them fresh. So that's why you want to shop twice a week for your more perishable things, and you want to try to prepare foods twice a week, right? And they be fried. And then so 4 days of the week you're eating leftovers. So you have time to go exercise, and the days on Sunday you can exercise, and Saturday you can exercise, right? Most of us have busy weeks. If you're busy, you can't fit exercise in. You can certainly fit exercise in on the weekend, right? And you have 2 days back to back, but because they're back to back, we don't want to do the same exercises on day A and day B. We want to change them around so we don't get the same muscle groups. And then you don't have to exercise here. You can do something else. Or you can do like a 10 or 15-minute exercise day. You don't do that much exercise. Or you could leave it where that's a day you go for a long walk, or you play tennis, or you go for a swim. You're not really heavy exercising. If you're diabetic or if you're overweight, you still should be doing some exercise every day, of course. But your heavy workouts are split to an A routine and a B routine. It could be A, B, A, B, A, B. It could be A, B, skip, A, skip, B. Or it could be A, B, C, A, B, C. But you want to plan out your exercise routine in advance. Like a scientist, this is making a business plan. I don't know your life in detail. How many hours you have to work, how many hours you spend in the car commuting, the time you have available during lunch, whether you get a lunch break where you could exercise during your lunch. I don't know whether you have to get up early in the morning, whether you exercise when you come back from work. But we have to figure out for you have to work out on paper your business plan. When you're going to shop, when you're going to cook, what you're going to make, right? Because you have to in advance, when you're going to exercise, what exercise you're going to do, build it up so it's right for you, and customize the plan for you. So some sample menus. So going through a week. In a real week, right here, we had a smoothie, and what do you have here? Bean salsa, it's leftovers, and soup was the leftovers. So obviously, it was Sunday, we made it, so we had these foods leftovers on Monday. So here's the dressings leftover from Sunday, it's a Monday morning, right? The quick vegetable stew is a leftover. Almost everything here, except the only thing made here that day, on Monday, was the mango sorbet at night, was the only thing cooked. Everything else was leftovers, right? Then here's Tuesday. We also have the same leftovers. I guess the salad was made with maybe we ran out of dressing or something. So here's vegetable juice, and then a bowl of fruit, so with some nuts or flax seeds, and we just had a fruit breakfast, leftover vegetable stew. This is all still leftovers, except we just added some steamed broccoli with garlic. We just added some green vegetables to the leftovers. So if you're cooking a minor amount of food. It just takes a minute. Or you could have defrosted a box of frozen vegetables, of frozen greens, of frozen peas, of frozen artichoke hearts. You want to make it so it's pretty simple, so you're not working so hard. Wednesday, time for your second shopping trip. right? You're going to shop and buy new stuff, right? And here you have a whole wheat pak stuffed with shredded greens with a hummus spread and a piece of fruit for lunch. Wasn't too hard to make. You just lightly toast the pita, cut it in half, shredded the greens really thin, and use the hummus spread, which now you have leftover hummus spread to use with something else. And here you have string beans and a strawberry freeze and the Russian fig dressing. So just giving you some examples, right, of how to mix together the leftovers. So here we took this Russian fig dressing using yesterday, and now we made it in a spinach salad. And we put red kidney beans on top. And here the dinner, we had a chopped salad, and we put a lot of shredded carrots and beets in the salad. You know, and the soup, in this case, probably would have cooked the soup and poured the soup on top of the salad. And it was kind of a light dinner. It was just like shredded lettuce with the soup picked on top and maybe some whipped fruit for dessert. Not a very big meal.
Two questions. The first is about juicing. Do you do juicing with mixture of vegetables and fruit? And the second question is about the use of sprouts.
Mostly when I just juice vegetables. So a typical juice for me, like Lisa might be going out to the health food store, and I'll say, pick me up some carrot juice with some kale and parsley in it. You know.
Fruit and vegetables for juice?
You can, but I don't really do that because I feel that, you know, why have fruit juice? It's not really that healthy. If I'm juicing, I'm trying to get nutrients into me. I'm trying to get some extra. It's a vehicle to get more parsley into me and kale. I don't really want to waste it with juice, with fruit in there. You know what I mean? I'd rather keep my fruit lower, my vegetable content higher. So I'd rather be having the carrot. If for flavor, you can put a little apple in if you want. You know, but I don't want it to be a majority of fruit usually.
And the
Sprouts are a good food, except I don't recommend you use a lot of alfalfa sprouts. And I don't recommend people with lupus use sprouts because it bothers them. It flares them up. There's like some irritating substances in the sprouts. But sprouting beans and sprouting grains and sprouting seeds can be a very, very inexpensive way to add vegetables and greens to your diet. And it's very cost effective to give you these microgreens, right? Yes.
Traditional salad dressings usually recommend 2 tablespoons per serving. Do you have any guidelines for use of your salad dressings?
That sounds about right. I probably am, maybe a little more liberal based on the salad dressing, basically because the salad is much bigger. You know, here, as there's so much selection of food, I'm eating like smaller salads than I usually eat because there's like a little more cooked vegetables, maybe. So I think that sounds about reasonable. Sure.
This cooking question came up at the session with Lisa and Sarah this morning regarding the new technique of soup making, chopping up greens and onions, blending them prior to cooking to get the myrosinase together with the glucosinolates. Right. Some of us have tried that and found that really radically changes the flavor of the soup to blend the greens first. Do you blend all the greens, some of the greens? We found that chopping the greens, we like that taste better than actually blending the greens in with the onions. But if it's important nutritionally, we're quite willing to do it. But I'm not sure that beginner nutritarians are going to go for that taste.
Right. So no, I like the taste with it blended in personally, but I usually don't blend all of it in. I'll leave some of it on the sides to give the soup a little more crunch or texture. But certainly you could mix it. If you're not going to blend it in, then you want to chop it more finely.
2 quick questions. First of all, when I make beans, if they're natural beans, and I soak them, or I don't soak them, but I'm going to cook them in water, isn't it important just to maintain that water because it's got nutrients from the beans?
Well, you're washing the beans and throwing out the water first.
Yes.
So you have relatively clean beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's probably some nutrients in there.
But it's not a big deal.
Either way, it's okay. I think you're probably getting some nutrients if you use that water, but you don't have to.
Okay, another quick question is sourcing my vegetables and some things like that. I live in Toronto, and we do have this amazing Chinese markets. I mean, you get them at really, really good prices. Now, the only thing is, sometimes the greens are not refrigerated. I guess the best way I can tell is by taste, but I'm still working with that, I guess ideally you'd want, refrigerated ones from organic, but that's not always going to happen.
You can usually tell by looking at it. They start to yellow. The collards start to get yellow. The broccoli starts to look a little bit off color.
Yeah.
You know, the kale starts to shrivel up or look yellow, not as green, like it's to a lighter green color, not the rich dark green color. You know, and it definitely you can taste the flavor difference. With an eggplant that's old, tastes bitter. The skin tastes more bitter versus being fresh. The kale and the California cream kale, the whole dish doesn't taste as good when the kale's old. It loses its flavor. It's not soft in it. You have to like overcook it to get it soft. You know, what I mean, so
Okay.
so freshness does matter, but you can usually tell by looking at it. At least you know.
Okay, thanks.
I've got two questions. Are canned veggies ever okay?
Nah,
Just
because the vegetable is soaking in water for long periods of time, and you're pouring all the nutrients in the water and the liquid, and they put salt in them usually. So it's kind of like the least preferable. Frozen would be much better.
but if I was going to use them, I would get the unsalted, obviously, and then use the water and put the water in with
It's
the
okay,
with the
so it's
soup.
not as bad, but still, the frozen vegetables are more nutritious. Are still
Yeah.
more nutritious. It's a
Okay.
preferable source of convenient vegetables.
And the other question, sometimes the high cacao chocolate, I put that in my smoothies. Is that I mean, it's not sweet, but is that a no-no?
It depends on the ingredients. It sounds reasonable, but I mean, obviously, you want to use that stuff sparingly, because the cacao powders have theobromine in them, and some people just it affects them. You know, it affects
It's
them
not.
like-
I just used a bar. It's not a powder.
Right. But the bars, but did you read the ingredients in the bar, what they have in there besides the cocoa powder? Whether they have coconut oil or palm oil or, you know, butter or sugar or what else you got in there?
No, no butter or sugar. Well, there may be some sugar. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not sweet. It's not a sweet
Well,
bar.
still, read the ingredients. It might, you know. I'm
Okay,
sure
so
the
just-
little small amounts you're using, probably still okay. It's all relative.
Yeah. Okay.
Heating up the soups, do you use microwave or do you do the stovetop?
Well, when I make the soups, I use the stovetop, but if I want to heat it up the next day, I use the
Right.
microwave. Because I'm heating it up in the microwave. I'm not cooking it in the microwave. I'm just
Okay.
making it warmer.
So it's not going to damage any of the nutrients that's in there when
Right.
you're using the microwave?
Yeah, because you're just bringing it to you're not bringing it to even boiling.
Okay.
When you cook things on a stovetop, you're bringing it to a boiling temperature, which is 220 Fahrenheit versus over than 100 Celsius, right? And that's the nice thing about water. You can't get boiling water above that temperature. It stops right there, right? And then when you heat it up, you're not even bringing it to, when you heat it up to warm it, it's not bringing it to boil. You're keeping it at a lower temperature even than a boil, just warming it up. In that case, because the problem with microwave cooking is that you can be careless and cook it for too long, and you can overcook things so easy in the microwave. And the overcooking, it's sometimes easier to overcook in a microwave than a conventional stovetop because it can get so hot without you realizing it. But you just be careful to undercook. You know, if you have to put it on for a little bit, you know, choose its amount of time in the microwave that's less than what anybody tells you, and when you heat up your soups, make them not that hot, and you'll be fine with the microwave then.
Okay. And my other question was, I've made some soups before with the carrot juice base, and it seems like when I freeze it and then let it thaw and use it, the flavors or even the consistency isn't the same. Have you frozen any of that in the past, or do you recommend not doing that?
Well, I don't usually freeze it if I'm going to use the soup within 6 days.
Right.
So if it's going to on a week, if you want to keep it more than a week, then I would freeze it, and you lose a little bit of the flavor.
Okay.
But if you're, but there's no reason to freeze it if you can use it up within the week. I've even, you know, soups and bean dishes keep pretty well if you're kept in the refrigerator in a sealed container.
Okay. Great.
White potatoes, are you distinguishing that with sweet potatoes or for example, there's red potatoes, golden Yukon potatoes, blue potatoes. What exactly do you mean by white potatoes? Just non-sweet potatoes or a particular type of potato?
Right. I mean, so if we look at we want to characterize carbohydrates in potatoes in a hierarchy from like the worst to the best. And we recognize that like peas and corn are a little better choice of carbohydrate. Even oats are a better choice of carbohydrate than white potato, right? So among the white potato, clearly the ones that are like the regular Idaho potatoes, the brain white potatoes, as they're smaller, more darker colored, like even wild rice and mahogany rice and black rices have a much more resistant starch benefit and much more nutrients than plain brown rice does. Likewise, some of those exotic potatoes that are smaller, more colorful, have more nutrients than regular potatoes. So it's a hierarchy. So we want to generally keep potatoes low, but sweet potatoes and colorful potatoes are more nutrient rich than white potatoes. So there's we might have a little more recipes with those potatoes as opposed to plain white potatoes.
So, but when you're referring to white potatoes, you're mostly meaning the russet potatoes that they make French fried potatoes and
Yes,
that type of product.
that's correct.
What is the nutritional value when you're using dried onion flakes?
Dry onion flakes?
Yeah. It was in one of the recipes, and I use it sometimes, but I think how much value is in them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that you're using enough, and the preparation of the onion flakes is going to be that much to be giving you much of an anti-cancer benefit. I think you're going to have to still add onions to your diet in addition to the dry onion flakes. Not that it's not good to eat, but it's probably not going to be as biologically rich as eating real onions in your diet.
I have a question about the supplements on the OsteoSun.
Yes.
It says 3 a day. Is it okay to take 2 in the morning and 1 at night, or do you have to spread them out 1, 2, 3?
No, of course not. You take all 3 at once. It wouldn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay. And on the DHA purity, it says to refrigerate it. And if you're traveling, is it okay for it to stay out for a few days, or is it best to always have it in the refrigerator?
Yeah, no, what we found is that when DHA stays out of the refrigerator, it usually takes about 3 months to the rancidity score to start to climb. And then by the 6 months, the TBA score, the 6th month out of the refrigerator is when we start to see the TBA scores really get into trouble. So if you're traveling and leaving it out for a week, it's probably almost irrelevant. The reason why I keep it refrigerated, and actually if you're buying it, since we have it, we're buying a few months supply, and we're storing it in our facility in the refrigerator. So if you get it and you're going to use it up in a month or two, you could keep it out of the refrigerator the whole time. But if you're going to store them and buy them in quantity, then certainly refrigerate them.
I like to make whole fruit juices, and I usually add the DHA to that, and it lasts in the refrigerator for a couple of days. The fruit juice does. Can I add the DHA, and does it get denatured, or do I have any concerns about storing it with the acidic product? So it's okay to do that.
Absolutely. No problem with that.
I have eliminated dairy from my diet because of my allergies. I haven't had milk for a long, long time or any other dairy products. But my family drinks a lot of 1% milk. So as I try to help them transition to a non-cow-based milk, do you have any suggestions for which of those different varieties might be the best ones to have them try first?
Well, they could try all of them, but I personally like hemp milk, because it's very pure white. It looks, it's to replace it, to recommend it to people, it looks just like milk, number one, and it has a very clean, gentle flavor, and it mixes well, and you don't really taste the strong hemp flavor, so the flavor is pretty hidden.
And is soy milk safe? I mean, some of my children have similar issues as
Allergies, you mean, against soy? Mm-hmm. Well, then if they're allergic to something, they shouldn't eat it.
Well, I don't know that they're allergic to soy, but they have allergies as I do, and so I guess we can try it and find out.
Are you allergic to soy?
Yes.
Oh, so probably if they're going to try it, don't start with a lot of it, but and maybe then the hemp milk might be a better choice.
Is there any advantage to sprouting beans before you cook them?
Yes, it changes their nutritional profile. So it makes it lowers the carbohydrate content. So you're turning a food that's higher carbohydrate, you're reducing some of the resistant starch and turning it more into protein. So it's giving you like a different variety of a food, and the more you sprout it, and the more the sprout gets bigger, you're turning the bean into more like a vegetable. Both are healthy though. You can eat both types. The larger the sprout gets, the more you're getting less starch, getting more protein and more water content, and it's making it more a vegetable, not a bean. You know what I mean? The bigger as the sprout grows, and in between stages, it's in between a vegetable and a bean.
I have 2-year-old twin grandbabies, and the little boy is allergic to dairy. She's giving him almond milk, and most of the containers say not as a replacement for formula or, I don't think he's getting
How old is the child?
Nutrition. They're 2 now, and she nursed them until they were 2, but now they're just drinking almond milk. And
that's fine. They don't need any kind of milk at the age of 2.
No,
they don't need nursing. They don't need breast milk. They don't need formula. They don't need almond milk. They don't need cow's milk. They can just eat food. So they're eating them. The milk she's feeding them, like hemp milk or soy milk, in recipes to drink, is just additional food. It's just food. They don't have to have that or any other kind of milk.
Okay.
They can eat the same diet that we're eating.
They just need the healthier diet. And the second question, when I make the anti-cancer soup, I mean, I didn't blend the raw vegetables. I did it the way I think it used to be. I would do the whole onions, the whole leeks, the whole zucchini, and then blend out part of it. But I would get a lot of strings in there. I guess that's from the leeks maybe or something. Does anybody else have that problem with when you blend it back?
Did you have a Vitamix? You blended it in a Vitamix?
I do
You
it
still
in
have it
Vitamix.
stringy?
But maybe I didn't blend
Maybe you didn't blend it
all of
enough, long enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I
You
don't know.
didn't blend it long
Just-
enough in the Vitamix.
But it's my favorite soup.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I mean, because I'm talking about this cell wall myrosinase activity, I mean, you don't have to be fanatical about doing that. We're getting plenty of nutrients and plenty of isothiocytes in our salads, and we're eating some cooked. You don't have to every meal maximize the production of myrosinase to get, of course, but I do treat a lot of patients with cancer. I treat a lot of patients with serious autoimmune conditions, and we want to, in some of these cases, maximize nutrients and devise ways to maximize nutrient absorption. But it doesn't mean that healthy people have to eat every meal. Where it's certainly fine to make it the old way, where you don't maximize the isothiocyanate production.
Could you explain the issues with the different ways that cocoa powder is processed?
I know that there are issues there. I know that there are some issues there with regard to where it's grown and whether they use the type of labor they're using, and and whether it's Dutch processed or other unprocessed. We've really done a lot of research to try to make sure that the one we recommend is minimally processed and done and supplied in a humane manner. But I don't particularly, I don't really have all the details right at my disposal right now. I can get back to you on that though.